The Powers Project.
Rita, it's great to see you again. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here with you and talking about narcissism.
Well, that's the thing. I had such a great time on your show, and I said I definitely want to have you on the show because I want to talk about narcissism because like you, at least I believe this is your take. I believe narcissism in this country is a big part of the problem that we have with why we do the things that we do and act the way that we act and have the outcome that we have now. So, would you agree with that, or is that maybe a little different to what you think, or what?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, all you have to do is just go on YouTube, punch in narcissism or narcissist, and you got like millions of videos up and with like almost millions of views per video. It's a trending topic for a reason. There's tons of Facebook forums about narcissistic abuse, and Quora forums about it. Books are now written about it. I know how to heal from narcissistic abuse. But I feel like the mainstream culture is throwing around this term narcissist willy-nilly without really going deep into what exactly entails narcissistic personality disorder, which is very in-depth. And the more and more we can recognize it as a culture, the more and more we can shut down accepting these traits in people to thrive, right? Because there's a reason. We always have to look at why has narcissistic personality disorder, like why have they been thriving? Why are they just growing in our population? And so obviously there's got to be some type of reward there for them to adopt these narcissistic traits and be a narcissist. We have to look at that. So as a society, we really do, really have to start, if you're involved in a relationship with a narcissist and you eventually realize there's no changing them. And, you have two options. You're either going to stay and sustain narcissistic abuse, or you're just going to leave. And I think the more people that are more empowered to just like walk away from narcissist, whether that's a friend, a romantic partner, or, recognizing it happens a lot in the workplace too. Like if you're a leader and you're recognizing bullying taking place, covert, typically these individuals are very covert, they're very sophisticated. This is why, they're thriving, because they're not doing it, they're not being so obvious in their psychological abuse and their tactics, right? So it's in their minds, everything's a game, and it's either you're a winner or a loser, right? So they see everybody as prey, like they're just predators, and they're in the category of antisocial personality disorder, right? Because they're not able to really truly form a genuine true connection with people. It's not authentic. It's just an act. Because in their minds, it's like, what can this individual give me? Is it connections? Any type of what resources?
So can I?
So when you're,
I'm sorry. Can I ask you a question just for a second? Then let's take this out of just for a moment. Take this out of the relationship realm. Let's look at this in a wider spectrum, if we can, and let's look at our country, for instance, and the politicians that we've elected. The even presidents that we've elected. It seems to me what you just said, like that applies to a lot of them, including, you know, and again, I don't know where you stand politically, so I don't mean to offend you, but especially the last president we have, you just described him to a T, to a T. I mean, everything you said about would not be able to have real connections with people, to to it's a game, to people are there to be used. That's, I don't, it doesn't get any clearer than that to me. And yet, as you said, people like him are rewarded. So why do people want to reward that behavior? Do they see it in themselves? Do we all have some sort of level of narcissism in ourselves that when we see someone act out like that, we appreciate it or want to, celebrate it or something?
Yeah, so there's multiple reasons for it. There's multiple reasons for it. So yes, we all have narc traits in us, in varying degrees, right? So somebody obviously with narcissistic personality disorder, they embody all of the traits. Like they have no boundaries. There's no moral scruples as to, manipulating you to extract money from you. And they'll just take. They don't, they don't care. Like there's just no there's no boundaries with them. They'll use their manipulation tactics there's no boundary. Like they have no I'm really taking advantage of this person. I really should stop. They don't have that programming. Their programming is as far as, they'll just keep going and going. So it's number one. We all have some narc traits. It's just, that's the difference between a person with narcissistic personality disorder. They embody all of them, where there's no boundaries, and they can be very dangerous individuals on a psychological basis on their advanced manipulation tactics. So that's number one. Number two, most people, don't there's a certain comfort, typically with, overt narcissists. They're typically leaders, and, they're quick thinkers. They take the lead, and, people who don't have those quality traits, like, they like to just, okay, you make all the decisions. Oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. It gives them comfort and safety. So, they're typically an overt narcissist, typically a dominant character, very charismatic. That's another reason why people accept them and like being around them and listening to them, because they're very charismatic. They're very entertaining. They shift your state into feeling good, and they make you feel special. So they're kind of like a walking Xanax, like a walking drug, because they're giving you this happy feeling and making you feel special. So they're actually increasing your serotonin and dopamine levels just by being in their presence, right? But that is just because they've learned, people, they have really great people skills for an overt narcissist. So those are a few of the reasons. And also they have advanced manipulation tactics. So they're really good with reasoning and reframing thoughts to make them seem logical. Like this is the only logical choice. And they reframe it. So, I'm doing this for you, type of thing. Like they're just really good and sophisticated manipulators that the average person is not well versed in. And they're totally not even seeing what's happening in front of their eyes. They're just not recognizing it.
So if this narcissist is to lie to people, is it that the people, are they just blind to it because they want to believe, or do they see it and just ignore it? I'm sure there might be a little bit of both. I guess the reason my question would be is, why would somebody, if they could see that this person, yes, he or she is very charismatic, and and it makes them feel good, but you can go, yeah, but what they're saying is not true, and I know that. But do I go, yeah, but I can ignore that because I like this person?
Okay. So if you address a narcissist on their, like when you start really recognizing, a lie, sophisticated lies they spin, they will gaslight you. So they condition you. They're masters at conditioning human behavior. They adopt a rewards and punishment system, and it's very cyclical. So we'll go back to that later, but we'll focus on gaslight. So if you bring up a lie or call them out, they'll say, no, that's just you. You're crazy. What? You're paranoid, or whatever they'll do. That I'm not lying. Like they'll deny it and they'll deny it like Nixon. Right. So they'll just continuously spin, and then you'll create stress and anxiety in you. because they will never back down, and they'll just keep pointing the finger at you, making you feel like attacking your character. So therefore, if you continue in this relationship with this person, whether it's professional, personal, or what have you, you start to not want to call them out because it's going to be a conflict. It's going to drain your energy. It's just not going to feel good. So you start to learn just not to bother calling them out on it. And then, and you continue on with this particular type of relationship in whatever capacity it is, professional or personal. There's always a series of rewards and punishments. They give you more rewards than the average person, because that is their way to hook you in to stay into the relationship. Like rewards could be, times when they make you feel special, like showering you with compliments, giving you tons of attention, perhaps gifts, or taking you somewhere where that's your special place, or whatever it is. Like they're just masters at making you feel amazing and cared for and loved for. They can be very supportive and seem to be very caring at times, and then they switch it when they want something from you or whatever it is, and they will punish you if they don't get what they want from you in whatever capacity that is, whether it's doing a favor for them or whatever it is. Like, you know what I mean? It's kind of like they kind of enslave you. They're just masters at enslaving people.
So basically, people who support this, a narcissist, they're not necessarily narcissists themselves. They just buy what this person's selling, hook, line, and sinker. They just believe in that person without any doubt. So they're kind of fooled by the whole charade, if you will, or charade.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So all right. So correct me about this if I'm wrong, but because what I've known of sociopaths will tell a different story to each person, and they don't care if they get caught in the lie. Where you're saying the narcissist will just make an elaborate lie and then make it seem like you're the one who's in the wrong if you catch them and call them out on it. So a narcissist actually is very calculated with their lie. They figure out how to make this lie and make it stick so that it can't be discredited as best they can. Where a sociopath just doesn't care. They'll tell you one story, turn around and tell me another story, and they don't care. They don't even care that we talk and find out that we were told two different stories, because I don't know, they have a different mindset. It's like a game to them, but where I think narcissists care, they don't. So is that your experience, or?
Well, I think it's a sociopath lies to lie. They're pathological liars. They lie literally at times where you don't even see that there's a gain in it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's like they'll just sit there and they'll spin a story about how grandma, took them to the farm or whatever it is, right? And there's no gain in it. It's like you're not saying this story to gain a promotion or, it's just a blatant lie for no gain. It's just a lie, right? A narcissist typically won't, some may, to lie, but it's always, I don't know. They can lie for gaslighting purposes, to either to protect themselves, to get away with whatever they've done, if you try to call them out on their behavior, or lie to gain something, lie to whether it's extracting funds from you or whatever favor, whatever it is they want to extract. So that's the difference. A sociopath, they go a little bit. They can take it a little bit further in terms of nonsensical behavior, like where you can't really identify, well, what's motivating you to do this, right, type of thing.
Yeah, I think in fact, I know you're absolutely correct. You're right, when you said that they just lie to lie, you don't even need have a gain there, and they don't. I mean, I've seen them do this where I go, I don't understand why you're lying. Like there's nothing to be gained from lying, yet you do. And I think they, like you said, I don't think they can help it. They just, it's just what they do. And so you're saying, but with a narcissist, there's almost always some sort of gain there, whether it's to protect themselves, or for their position, or to take something or manipulate somebody or something, that their lies there's a reason behind their lies usually.
Yeah, like they're motivated by something typically. Yeah.
So how prevalent has this become in our country, where we see more and more of these people? And is there something, in your opinion, that's happening where we do see more narcissistic people than ever before? Because there seems to, I mean, you can go on Facebook, and everything that you just talked about that narcissists do constantly throughout the day on Facebook, you will find people doing that all day long. Like that's what they do. And so I can't help but think that they have this, narcissistic, personality disorder, as bad as politicians that we have in office. So why do we see this? Is it because of social media allows them to, have they always been there? They just haven't had a voice, and now there's a way for them to come out of the woodwork?
I think it's multiple reasons. It's definitely, if you look at our culture, with the selfies and such. But I think that, again, like most of us, just by participating in this particular type of society, we have narc traits because we live in a competitive society. So we're bound to have some narc traits in order to, survive and thrive. When you're going for a job interview, to get hired, a part of that is your appearance. We're judged by our appearance and taking care of ourselves, stuff like that. So, but we don't know, an average person doesn't encompass all of those traits of an, I think that it happens. It starts, well, they say that, someone with full-blown narcissistic personality disorder, it's because they learned it from their parents, or they were neglected by their parents, abandonment issues. I think it's a variety of things. Or maybe I think too that, even if they came from a good parental home where the parents were not narcissists, I think it's possible that, and the parents gave them, support and love and attention. It's possible too that perhaps when the child leaves the home, because when you're going into these workplaces too, it's, it's some of these corporate environments kind of promote this behavior, because, there's backstabbing going on, there's office politics, right? So sometimes I think the workplace may, possibly, motivate certain behaviors, and then people, and, maybe people are like, oh, well, I'll just become one. I mean, it's being done on me. Like people run into these, narcissistic personality disorder types of people, and, and maybe, but I think mostly it stems from childhood, in order to be a full-blown. And I think that when they go out into the world, whatever their experiences, it just amplifies those narcissistic behaviors and ways of thinking, to protect themselves. And so, because they literally have this, core belief that it's like me versus them in whatever situation they're in. And because when you're sustaining abuse, right, when you're a child, I think that if it's just an abuse setting, if the child is being neglected or what have you, if it's just pure neglect, or if it's actual physical or whatever, the child this is when your alert system increases, like your nervous system is amplified, right? So your awareness levels are constantly are heightened. So the child starts to tune in more about the parent's particular mood. They start dialing in, more tuned in about human behavior in order, when mom comes home from work, or they start to associate the triggers associated with the mood swings or whatever, right? So they become hyper aware of human behavior that way. And they, learn manipulation, and they start to learn how to manipulate maybe, the parent to be more calm or whatever. So this is typically how it starts. And then it just kind of flourishes as they grow up with more experiences, because this is how they've adopted that core belief with that particular, the first relationship they've had, the parental relationship. Or they just typically, or learned it from their parents. One of the parents were one, and they role modeled that as their role model for behavior. So, yeah.
Earlier, you said that a narcissist won't change. So I have to ask you, because I've talked to a friend of mine who's a psychologist about sociopaths, and he said sociopaths can't change. He said they're always going to be sociopaths. It's who they are. And he said the best they can hope for is become a used car salesman and not hurt people too much with their lies. But so would you agree with that as far as narcissists go too? Do you think that they can't change, or they just don't want to change?
I think that for the most part, I think that they can't change. I think most of them can't. And I think that, even if they, I think with the culture now, because there's much more awareness, thank God, about narcissistic personality disorder, that you are actually kind of starting. So you are kind of seeing people starting to slowly, thank God, recognizing these people, right? So they are being called out, right? So, but the thing is, when they get called out, they may act like they want to change, right? Because the culture now is kind of really shining a huge spotlight on it. And I feel like they may even cry, right? Like, I'm so sorry I've hurt you, but I feel like it's because they're being caught. They'll cry because they're being caught, right? Type of thing. Actually, which I kind of find, there's actually a YouTube channel that was created last year by a self-proclaimed narcissist, someone who says, I'm a sociopath, I have narcissistic personality disorder, I'm a sociopath. And she is literally the first one kind of calling us out, saying, you guys are the problem, making me feel bad. And her channel is actually pretty popular. And she literally tells everybody, like, there's benefits to being one. And this is like, I don't hurt anybody, and I have boundaries, and So now we're seeing an uprising from the narcs to like say, hey, you know what? Like, you're discriminating against us now, type of thing. So it's crazy. It's interesting what we're going to see in the future as more and more people are calling out this disorder, because we're kind of like, we're just kind of getting sick of the abuse running into society, and always bumping into these people and being harmed on a psychological basis.
So let me ask you this, just to play devil's advocate and take this person's side and say, what if she feels like, look, okay, sure, I'm a narcissist and these are talents that I have, but I don't force anyone to do anything. Whatever they do on their own. It's very similar to
Charles Manson.
That's one, but I could think of Joeolsteen and all these other preachers out there who con these people into giving them money and believing in something that, and again, I don't want to attack anyone's religious beliefs, but when you spend the money that you get on these, exotic cars and mansions and stuff, you're not doing what and again, this is my opinion, you're not doing God's work. You're becoming extremely wealthy off of people because you're running a con game. And the thing is people do it, they believe these people, want to believe these people, and give their money freely. So, I'm sure that they're going to say, look, if you give, if I tell you something and it brings value to you because I make you feel good, why shouldn't I get paid for that? Why shouldn't I reap some sort of reward or gain from that?
Exactly. That was my point earlier is people see these figures being rewarded financially, and then, then they attach it with their personal past history, right? Of, maybe they were conned themselves or whatever, they suffered some type of social injustice, whether that be in the workplace or what have you, right? So therefore, then they look at these characters, who are financially being rewarded for, not being genuine. It sends a message. It sends,
Yeah, I think it does. I think, again, we don't have to look any further in our politicians to see that it sends them a message. That's why they continue to behave and act and say the things that they say, knowing that they're lying, knowing that they're being hypocrites, and they don't care because they know people are going to still vote for them. And I don't know if there's a term for this, a professional term, but I call it, because 80% of the people in this country are sheep. And they won't think for themselves. As you pointed out, they don't want to think for themselves. They like having a charismatic character who can tell them, this is how it is. And then they can just simply believe that. They don't have to, they don't have to find out on their own. They don't have to do any sort of work. They just believe that what that person says. It's almost like they're passing the buck, so they can say, so if they end up being wrong, they go, well, it's not me. That's what I was told, sort of thing, and not take any responsibility for themselves, sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, in that particular structure, we only have a certain amount of politicians to vote for. So, I think a lot of it as well has to do with the structure and options as well. So, and I think there's a lot to it, but definitely a part of it is, being charismatic, being a great speaker, making people feel good with your words. There is a lot of, power in that. And especially when you know how to leverage thoughts to make people feel nostalgic, right? Like, for example, when you say make America great again, that's a very nostalgic feeling. It's going to bring up memories of, when you were growing up and when things were simpler and stuff like that, right? Milkman was coming by or whatever it was. Or whatever that means to you. It's a positive statement, right? So, yeah. And also there's a lot of things going on, but the point of it is they know how to make people feel safe because they know how the human condition is. Like, they know how the average person is living and feeling, right? Like, a lot of people have been we all have been victimized in some shape or form to varying degrees, right? We all have that in us. So if you can tap into the power of, you're no longer going to be a victim anymore, we're going to empower you with sharing a particular, sentence, which is a thought that capsulates that, right? Like, when you say make America great again, it implies America's not great, so I'm going to make it better. So then you start to personalize it with, well, I'm going to have a better job, or my family's going to be happier. You know what I mean? There's a lot going on.
Right.
So, yeah, there's a lot going on, especially when it comes to politics and politicians, because again, we only have a certain amount of choices to elect as well. And then we can go into a whole nother, how to, and why is that? You know what I mean? Why do we only have a certain amount of, it's a very slim,
Right. We
then we can,
here for hours if we go down that rabbit hole, I can assure you. So we won't go down that. So so let me ask you this. There's different types of narcissism though, because I understand there's narcissism from people who have no self-esteem, and I'm going, that seems to contradict the names themselves. So like, how do you end up being a victim, or someone with no self-esteem and yet still be a narcissist?
Yeah. Like I said, they're great actors, right? So they act with great self-confidence, especially an overt narcissist, because overt narcissists are the ones that are like extroverts. They're very social, very charismatic, but very insecure. Because they're not, when you look at, the functionality of a narcissist, they're truly not independent creatures. They're very dependent creatures. They can't generate their own energy like themselves in terms of like, generating their own happiness or generating truly their own success, right? It's always because the way they're programmed is they're constantly look like a predator, like an animal who's looking for prey, right? You're a tiger, you're always looking, what can I get? Where, so thereby they're going to feel inadequate. They're going to feel insecure because they can't do it themselves. They always got to really always rely on another individual to kind of feed off of, right? Like parasitic
vampire that has to suck the energy out of everyone around them, sort of thing.
Yeah. And people that are not, I can make myself happy. Like, I don't need to like I can, for me, I'm a homebody. I love having my hot baths and reading my book, and I'm, happy-go-lucky with my herbal tea, whatever, right? Like, I don't constantly, like, it's not this kind of external, like, what can I get from so-and-so, or, and also a lot of bullying too. Like, there's a lot of, they like to compare themselves to other people as well, because again, the nature of them is they're always looking to the outside to fulfill their internal state. So, when you're constantly comparing yourself to Sally, Jim, and Joe, again, it feeds into that their core belief, their core perspective is me versus them, right? Whoever, anybody. So, yeah, how could you possibly feel secure in yourself when you're constantly looking to others, right? So they're very insecure people, but they mask it very well with it. They're just great actors. They have great acting ability.
All right, so you may not know the answer to this, but I want to ask you anyway, just in case. So when you have people who are alcoholics or drug addicts, they are master manipulators themselves. They will get people to do things for them, even people who are obese, who have people bring them food and stuff. They learn how to get these people to do what they need or want them to do for them, whether it's give them money, whether it's buy them drugs, give them a place to stay, constantly. And they constantly use these people over and over again. Is that narcissism, or is that something different that they've just, some sort of behaviors that they learn just so that they can survive?
I don't know. You have to look at the individual on a case-by-case basis. There's a lot of narcissists that do have substance abuse issues just because of the insecurity they have, because of that nature that they have of constantly seeking prey, right, in other humans. So they don't feel secure. They can't generate safety within themselves. So, and a lot of them, they're not happy. Like, they're not genuinely happy people, right? Because they can't create it themselves. So, hence why a lot of them are like drug addicts and alcoholics. There is a huge correlation there. People that have narcissistic personality disorder with substance abuse. And then of course, and then you got people that are just addicted to be addicted. And so that you have to look at that, you have to look at that a case by case basis. So yeah.
Right. Well, all right. So here's a question for you. So you're going to go, God, that's a stupid question, but sorry. I'll apologize in advance. We talked about the ego on your show and how the ego is necessary, and it's good to have an ego to, to an extent, like where it doesn't end up ruling you, if you will, because it protects you. Is there any type of narcissism that's good? Like, is there a level of narcissism where it's like, oh, it's good to because it builds confidence or something of that extent, on the spectrum?
Yeah. So, there are some traits that, are, I guess, someone who's like an empath or a really nice person, or, that are, we can learn from the narcissist in a healthy manner, is that the narcissist, you'll never be able to take advantage of a narcissist, right? Because because they're completely selfish creatures. So they just will never allow that to happen. And they always, so they'll shut that down. Like, they'll never let anybody take advantage of them. Number one. Number two, they always express their needs and wants, right? They always make sure their needs and wants are fulfilled. So whereas someone, who's not a full-blown narc, may repress their needs and wants because, for a variety of reasons, maybe they just feel like, oh, I don't want to like impose on that person, or I don't want to be a burden to my partner, or whatever it is, right? Or maybe you're not even knowing what your needs and wants are. So I would say those are the two traits of narcs, is that they always get their needs and wants fulfilled. So we can learn from that, but in a more healthier manner, of course, in a respectful manner.
Let me stop you just for a second and ask you this then. Where do you draw the line where you go, okay, this is a narcissistic person and this is a confident person? Because here's the thing, what you just described is me. Honest to goodness. So now I'm going, no, maybe I'm narcissistic. I don't believe that. So, but here's the thing, like, I always express what my wants and needs are, and especially in a relationship.
And that's healthy to do.
Okay, good. That's what I was hoping you were going to say. I do. Honestly, I would like my wants and needs met. And so therefore, I can't get them met if I don't express what they are. But I also tell people, I don't expect you to just go, oh yeah, I'll do that. If we're not compatible, I understand, then we're not compatible. If my needs and wants don't match up with what you want to do, or your needs and wants, then we're not compatible. But I want to find someone that I am compatible with. So therefore, I think it's important for me to put it out there to say, so that way people will go, I don't want to be in a relationship a year down the road and they go, well, I didn't know you were like that. So I didn't know you had those wants and needs, so is there a line there that, that where you can either be confident or narcissistic and not necessarily be both?
I think it's, when you're expressing your needs and wants in a relationship, for example, like, you like to be more physically sensual in the mornings and you never express that to your partner, or whatever it is. I think that's a healthy way to be, because when your partner should want to know, what your needs and wants are to feel fulfilled. And they're, and it should be a reciprocal,
right,
like, relationship where you're also listening to their needs and wants and, trying to fulfill those and like find common ground. Right. So that's a healthy relationship, and it's understandable. Like, we're human beings with needs and wants. We all have a past history where we associate, particular times of the day with joy or whatever it is, based on our nervous system. Our nervous system encodes everything. So whether we're aware of it or not. So, so we're literally living with our past history in our nervous system, based on our triggers and based on, what we like to do. You love ice cream and it makes you feel good because you and grandma had ice cream every Saturday and she brought it over, right? So now you love ice cream, and so there's a lot of like associations there. So this is why we need to listen to what our partner needs and wants, because they have their own personal past history of how they associate things, particular things,
Right.
whether it's associating to pain or associating to love and joy. A narcissist needs and wants, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond, I'm going to go to the baseball game with you because you love baseball. We're going to have ice cream more, because you enjoy that. So we're going to make it a ritual every Saturday or whatever it is. It goes beyond that. It is literally more extreme. It's more of like a master-slave relationship, where it's like they ensure that their needs and wants are always being met. And it is not just in regards to going to your favorite event or, sharing a particular food or doing a particular activity at a certain time. It literally, there's no bound, it's everything, whatever it is that they want, right? So like they have no boundaries. And so, typically like, they'll, if you're in a relationship with one of them, like a lot, and they don't like to work, you're going to sustain a lot of financial abuse, right? And they have no remorse around that, right? So it's what I mean where the narc gets more extreme. Like there is no moral boundaries. That's the right word, the right term to say. And there is no reciprocity either. So it's like you're going to find yourself constantly meeting their demands, and they're not going to do the same for you. Right. So
the difference between, let's say, someone who's narcissistic and somebody who's just confident is intent and reciprocity. So if I only care about my needs being met and I don't care about my partner's, then that's not just confidence, that's narcissism. Right?
Right.
Okay. So for people out there who might be questioning, because again, a lot of what you said that narcissists are also the same thing that confident people are, and they're not necessarily narcissistic. I always like to go, like people will say, well, you have charisma, or you're this or you're that. And I go, well, those are my powers, but fortunately I only use my powers for good and not evil. So, so it's a joke that I just go, because I've never had the intent to hurt other people or to use other people. That's never. So while I can say I have all these traits that you're talking about, I wouldn't say I was narcissistic. Of course, I don't know. I guess narcissists wouldn't say they're narcissistic either. But I like to think that
I've had two people admit to me they're narcissists. So I think it's because the awareness is increasing, and yeah, they admitted it, and without any shame or guilt around it.
Yeah. See, all right. So here's the thing. So the one question I want is if people out there listening to this and they're going, I wonder if I'm a narcissist, how can, what can they ask themselves to find out if they are?
So a narc, the difference is a narc is out to make themselves feel better, right? Whether that's, bullying somebody else to make them feel inferior. That's one of their favorite things to do, through, like we mentioned, like gaslighting, or like it's basically a sophisticated form of manipulation, psychological abuse, to make you feel like you're not enough. What would you do without me? Oh my God, you can't even make a decision. Why are you taking so long? You do this all the time. Little things like that. It's just constant conditioning to make you feel smaller. They're bigger and you need them. So therefore, it's a constant power play where they want power and control in any particular situation, in any particular relationship. It's always really truly at the core power and control, whether that's in the form of money, in the form of attention, in the form of exercising, what you do, what decisions you make, or whatever it is, masked in a very sophisticated reasoning process that they create. They're very sophisticated manipulators. Like, I'm doing this for your own good. What would you do without me? You realize that you're weak in these areas, right? So I'm making you stronger, right? So it's always like trying to enslave. You're the slave, they're the master. That's really the difference.
Okay, so the next question is this: people who are in relationships like this, who start to identify these behaviors from their partner or whoever they might be in a relationship with, what's your suggestion to them? Like, if they find themselves in a relationship with a narcissist and they're doing exactly the things that you just said that that they do, what would your suggestion be to them?
Run. Run. And I know that's it's very difficult because there is a bond there, and actually it's a very strong bond, very strong. It's more strong than a normal relationship.
Right. It's only a bond on one side though, right?
No, there's a bond on, well, yeah, the victim typically has a stronger bond. So the person that's the narc, I guess they could, in their mind, it might be like a bond, but it's more of your supply to them, like they own you type of thing. So if you're really good supply meaning, you're providing resources like finances to them, or, not all narcs commit financial abuse. A lot of them could be very wealthy by their own right, because they're, killing it in business or whatever. So some of them can be financially abusive, some don't, or maybe they're financially abusive in different ways. So maybe the ones that are with the pocketbook, and you're not. So therefore, they're gonna like dictate to you how much you can spend, and would just again, control and power. So whatever supply you're giving, maybe you're very supportive and loving, and you're constantly, you bought into their spiel, their little mind game trick. And so you yeah, you're right. I could be more supportive, and you're very supportive, you're very loving. Typically, narcs, they prey over empaths. People are very empathetic. So they're very easy because, we're very empathetic. We have empathy, great empathy for people, and we understand people, and we try to understand why they behave the way they do, and we feel compassion around their traumas and all these things. So, and narcs know this. So typically they're in a relationship with an empath, and the empath, will constantly shower them with love and support and attention. And that's supplied to them because they're getting energy from the empath. So they, I don't know, they feel like, it's more like they feel like more like they own you type of thing. I don't know. It may look like to you like they're bonded to you, but it's a constant power play for them. So I don't know. But it was definitely I know the victim is a very strong trauma bond.
Right.
It's very difficult to pull away from. It is very, very difficult. They have you in a very strong psychological grip. It's very difficult to pull away from.
Interesting. So your advice would be run, or as you said, there's a bond there, but you need to do something to I would say escape. Would that be too harsh of a word for being in a situation like that?
Yeah, like I said, it's going to be very difficult to psychologically walk away from, because what happens is, especially depending on how long you've been in that relationship, there's a very strong conditioning process that takes place, a series of rewards and punishments. And also what happens is, you become addicted to that because, like a drug, when you get your rewards, your dopamine increases, your serotonin increases, and it feels really good. Like it's a really high shut up rate of serotonin and dopamine increase levels because they're masters at making you feel better than anyone else has, right? They're very socially intelligent creatures, especially the overt ones, where, if you were to compare it to previous relationships where you were not with an overt narcissist, they really didn't they didn't, typically you may have not experienced that level of, special treatment, whatever you want to categorize it as, to make you feel that way. Like these just, very wonderful, like very romantic, like you see in the movies, like these huge, grandiose gestures. They're very good at that. And then you go into a punishment cycle, whereas when you get punished, if you call them out on their behavior, or if you're not giving them what they want, and therefore you're going to feel low and your state is going to be low. And so your brain gets hooked onto the reward cycle when you get that shot of serotonin, and therefore you put up with the punishment cycle because the reward cycle is coming at some point. So it's literally like a drug, like addicted to a drug, right? Because you're gonna, what's coming because you're constantly in this cycle.
I'm glad you explained that because oftentimes I've questioned. Again, I'll go to Facebook because I see so much stuff on there, and you'll see empaths whining and crying about how they're being used all the time and how nobody cares for an empath, but an empath cares for everybody and that sort of thing. And I go, well, why do you allow yourself to be in there? But now you just explained it, that rush that they get of feeling great about themselves when they get that reward, it hooks them in there. Because to me, I would go, look, the way, again, and this was a lesson that took me a long time to learn, but nowadays I go by people's actions. I don't care what their words are. If their actions show me who they truly are, I go, I'm done. You can tell me whatever you want. You can praise me all you want, and I know it's not sincere because your actions prove that. And so I would say for empaths, if you want to get out of that type of situation, I know that you crave that reward, but man, there's got to be a better way to get it than to deal with someone like that,
Yeah. I know. But when you're caught in that, they really, really show and make you feel loved in those reward moments. So you do the empath, well, typically it is an empath that is involved with a narc, is feeling they do feel feelings of love, like very, because they're really good at creating that. I mean, the most famous case around this is the Charles Manson case. This is a perfect illustration of this. And people to this day are fascinated by that case, like about the motives and da-da-da. But if you were to just look at the dynamic of, oh my God, he got all these pretty, very bright girls and guys, basically kind of worshiping him, like really, and they committed murders, the followers, and they looked back at their, personal past history. Like these kids were not kids that you would think that would do these things at all, or even become criminals. They all like very bright, high marks. I think Leslie, one of the girls was homecoming, whatever. The point is Manson, he was brilliant at demonstrating. If you listen to all of their personal testimonials, like they always run it like every year, the anniversary of the Manson whatever thing, and typically they have the girls on and the girls talk. So they're the common thing was, yeah, they felt love, you know, in the beginning. Like, I think it's like the first year that they were with him, and then it flipped, right? But it was like a slow conditioning process. It didn't happen overnight. So, you know, he was able to have all of those people love and adore him, right? And they really did at one point. So that's a classic case to look at, is for people to understand how that dynamic plays out.
That's amazing. The fact that it just seems to be increasing, you know, but at least now, like you said, people are becoming aware of it so they can identify it and hopefully, you know, get out of a situation like that without it taking half your life to figure it out, you know?
Yeah. And the most amazing thing with that case too, is I think, yeah, two of the girls continued, like, you know, following him or promoting him, you know, like still defending or whatever. Yeah, basically defending him, I guess you could say, like defending his character or whatever.
Well, being for as intelligent as they were and things of that nature, I would think that there had to be something missing in their life, whether it's, you know, their parents didn't give them enough attention or love or something to that effect, in order for them to be, you know, sucked in by this man and believing. Because if you're intelligent, you can tell when someone's BSing. You can tell if someone says that, you know, if someone comes up to me and goes, "Oh, I'm the son of God," I'd be like, okay, you know, I'm not going to go, I'm not going to fall for this person and what they say. And I know it's more detailed than that, but unless there's something so messed up in my life, I can't see falling for something like that.
Yeah. Well, Manson, he had a very high IQ. He didn't come out and said, you know, he never stated that he was like, I think he had some of the followers believe that he was Jesus, but he did it very covertly. Like it was very like an indirect suggestion. Again, this is what narcs do. And Manson had it was known that he had a high IQ. Like that was not kept a secret. So he didn't come out and, you know, exhibit these outrageous statements or claims right from the hop. And neither did he during his whole conditioning process. It was always very indirect suggestions. You know, once he got them programmed, and he was basically, he deprogrammed them and then he programmed them. And yeah, you're right. The girls that continued to, I guess, stay in his trance or whatever you want to call it, hypnosis, his program, they, both of them sustained parental neglect. So like the Lynette Fromm, she was kicked out of her house at, you know, the parents like kind of disowned her at 18 or whatever. So that she didn't have a family. She was neglected. And then with the other one, Sandra, she, same thing, same type of, you know, parental neglect. There was not that emotional support that she was getting from her family, even though she came from an upper middle class family. So, which was, yeah. So that was why they stayed in, because he was providing that love, like a father figure that was missing, that they never really experienced.
Well, it's a very interesting topic, like I said, and that's why I wanted you to come on today and discuss it and see if, you know, to help the listeners and the viewers in case they're in a relationship like that, or if they're questioning whether they might be like that, you know, that they can become more aware. And I think that's where we make progress, is when we become aware of things, and then that way we can, you know, do things that will help us to make the right decisions, rather than stay in a relationship that's doomed and that's going to do nothing but hurt us. So I appreciate you coming in and talking about this today.
I appreciate being here and contributing to this very important awareness that everybody needs to be more aware of. And hopefully, you know, as a society, we can eradicate this, hopefully.
Right. What I want you to do is, because you have a podcast, so I'd like for you to tell the listeners and viewers, tell them about your podcast, tell them about your website, your social media. Let them be able to reach out to you and find your podcast so they can listen to the episodes on there that talk about this, maybe even in greater detail. And because your podcast is all about self-love and self-care. So, there's a lot more to it than just, narcissistic personality disorder to all that stuff. And so I'd like for them to take a listen to you and gain some more knowledge in that area, because we all could use more self-love and self-care, I think. So
Absolutely.
what's your podcast, the name of your podcast?
So my podcast is Happy Being Well, and you can find that on Spotify or Apple iTunes. Those are the two major platforms.
Okay. And what about your social media? Do you have Instagram or Facebook or any of those things that if you'd like, the people listening to follow you, go ahead and give those.
Yeah.
I'll put
so Instagram
on there below as well. So I apologize.
It's okay. Instagram, it's Happy Being Well is the Instagram handle. And on Facebook, it's facebook.com/happybeingwell. So
do you have a blog or a website or anything?
Yeah, my website is happybeingwell.com. And there's a blog there that has tons of articles about self-love, self-care, how to amplify your meditation, how to use essential oils, reduce stress and anxiety, how to use crystals, talks about crystals, yoga. I just featured one of LA's top yoga instructors on the blog, on a recent blog article. So tapping in to find really great yoga instructors as well in the blog article. And then tons of free resources for downloads. Like I have a free self-care journal people can download with journal questions and prompts to get them going in their self-discovery process. And a Meditation Made Easy ebook for people to learn how to meditate very easily, because most people find it difficult because their minds are constantly, we're used to thinking and being in our minds so much and not in our bodies. So I have a lot of great easy hacks to shut the mind down easily and get into meditative state and get into regular practice. So, yeah.
I need that desperately. Okay, well, listen, I really appreciate you being on the show. It's been wonderful. I knew it would be. And so thank you so much for your time today. Folks, I want you to go check out Rita at happybeingwell.com, because as I just said, there's not one of us that can't benefit from having more self-love and self-care and learning how to do that and taking care of ourselves. We start taking care of ourselves first, the rest of the world will fall into place. And then you'll find, you won't be as angry as you might be right now. So at least that's what I found. So again, thank you so much for being here. And folks, thank you for joining us. And until next time, take care, be safe, and continue wearing your mask for right now. Peace.